Restaurant Unstoppable, episode 621 with Beejhy Barhany. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, Beejhy Barhany. Beejhy, are you feeling unstoppable today?
I am unstoppable today.
Yes, that's what we like to hear. So born in Ethiopia, Beejhy Barhany made it to the USA by way of Kenya, Uganda, Europe, Israel, and South America before settling roots in New York City. And in 2000, Barhany founded Beta Israeli, say it for me real quick.
Beta Israel of North America Culture Foundation.
Thank you. Dedicated to educating about the culture and heritage of Ethiopian Jews. And in 2014, Barhany, alongside husband Padmore John, opened Tsion Café in the historic Harlem district of Sugar Hill. 5 years later, the cafe continues to thrive, serving the community as a place to put differences aside and to celebrate the arts over Ethiopian and Israeli food. I cannot wait to dive into your story to find out how you got to where you are today. But let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
Today I got for you is, in any situation, follow your instincts. If you have a doubt about something, just follow that first instinct you got in your that comes to you.
Follow your guts, a gut feeling, right?
Right.
The instincts.
Mm-hmm.
How has that served you?
It served me well. Sometimes, first of all, about this place, a lot of people say, "Oh, this place has no potential. It look, about a bit run down and so forth." But and I felt something within me that I said, "You know what? I think it might be the place for us to open Tsion Café." So, and that how we roll from there.
Just the gut feeling, and there's a lot of studies coming out right now about the power of the gut feeling. It's the low road of our brain is paying attention to all these little details, and it's communicating to us, and we don't quite understand it fully yet, but we do know that it means something, so do pay attention to it. It's very powerful.
For sure.
Awesome. So let's bring it back to where the story starts for you. Where does it make sense to start sharing your story?
When did it start?
Yeah, like where should we go? Like, tell us about the come up, the story of Beejhy.
Okay, so in terms of the story of Ethiopian Jews, for example, I don't know how many people know the existence of Black Jews, Ethiopian Jews. Black Jews have practiced Judaism in Africa for thousands of years, and they were dedicated. Not many people know of the existence, but these are ancient people that practiced the Torah for thousands of years. And about the 70s or so, a lot of Ethiopian Jews started leaving Ethiopia and emigrating towards the land of Israel. Of course, in the beginning, it wasn't easy, integration to Israeli society, but gradually, small groups started trickling to Israel and receiving the recognition of the existence of Black Jews, Ethiopian Jews, and then eventually, getting integrated into the mainstream of Israeli society in Israel.
So we should mention that you spent the first 4 years of your life, correct? In Ethiopia, was it the first 4 years?
That's correct.
And then you spent the next 3 years getting to Israel.
That's correct.
So take us through that part of your life. Any lessons early on? I know you're really young, 4 years old, 4 to 7, but anything that stands out to you during this time to help form who you are today?
Of course, anything that I went throughout my life, it kind of molded me to be who I am. But we go back. So in Ethiopia, Ethiopian Jews lived, if we even go back to history, how Ethiopian Jews arrived in Ethiopia. There are different theories and histories, but the belief within Ethiopian Jewry is that we've been there for over 3,000 years in Ethiopia. When there were the exiles, the 10 tribes of Israel were exiled throughout the diaspora. Some of them arrived in Ethiopia, some of them arrived in Egypt, in Morocco, in Europe, and so forth. So that Jews being scattered throughout the diaspora. So one of them are Ethiopian Jews. And it always, in the heart of the Ethiopian community, been believed that we shall return to the Holy Land, to Israel in some point. And eventually that movement started back in the 70s and 80s when basically Ethiopian Jews left my family, the whole village of 300 people decided to leave and migrate towards Sudan without the knowledge of the government, of course. They had to escape. And then from Sudan to wait in some area and eventually to immigrate to Israel.
So one thing I'm kind of curious about is I was looking at the map at Africa because I saw that you went through Kenya to what was it? Help me out here. I don't know.
So we went to
Uganda, right?
Right.
Kenya to Uganda, but those countries are kind of like clumped together. It's not like one next to the other, like in a straight line. So why did it take 3 years? What was going on? What made that so difficult to go? How many miles was that? Like,
okay, so the trip in large, it happened 3 years because so we left Ethiopia. We walked in the desert.
Oh, wow.
We walked from Ethiopia to Sudan. It took almost a month.
Wow.
And when I say walked, it was a hardship for a lot of people. They didn't take a bus or anything. If they were lucky, they would take horses or donkey and ride on them. But everything was done by foot.
Mm-hmm. Was that to stay under the radar?
Yes, to make sure the government doesn't find out, and we majority of the time we will hide throughout the day, so nobody really suspect. There is a whole movement of a group that trying to leave the country, and then we will hide. Let's say you walk, for next village, you will stop, you integrate into the village, and from there you will, eventually you will have a stop in a Jewish village. They will hide you. They know it's a whole operation that
It's
was
kind of like an underground railroad.
That's
it sounds
correct,
like, yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
So the villagers will hide us, give us some water and so forth, and then night come, we walk to the next.
So you couldn't come off as seeming transient. You had to look like you were integrating within the community.
That's
like you
correct.
weren't just trying to.
Otherwise, you will be executed. And
I was going to ask, what would have happened if they found that you were trying to leave? Execution?
Execution.
Oh my gosh.
Nobody was allowed to leave the country.
That must have been terrifying. Did you know this at this? You probably didn't know at such a young age.
I didn't know much that
bet.
was the issue, but what I knew of was that was the time for us as Ethiopian Jews to leave Ethiopia and emigrate to the promised land, Jerusalem, that everybody was dreaming and hopefully to return to.
Yeah.
So it was kind of fulfilling a prophecy. So people sacrificed, did whatever it takes in order to accomplish or fulfill that dream. When I was saying we hide in a village, keep going, it took almost a month. And the dedication in that story of immigration is that we had pregnant women that gave birth throughout that journey. So I'm just trying to tell you that.
That's a reason to slow down. Yeah.
But nevertheless, people did not slow down.
Oh, wow.
The sacrifice, the strong belief that I will do whatever it takes to arrive to the promised land, Jerusalem, and be there among my brothers and sisters and practice Judaism in free.
Now, I know there's a lot of like, maybe the word's like stigma or false truths that the Ethiopian Jews were poor, but you guys, this was a choice that you weren't poor, you were comfortable, right? You were happy, you were comfortable. It wasn't like you were being pushed out. This was a choice.
That was by choice. Nobody pushed us out. People actually left the land and the wealth, and majority of the people were farmers, had big land, cows, goats, horses, you name it. We were not suffering, we're not starving, or something of that nature. Actually, the famine, the starvation started after we left, 1984 and so on.
Okay.
So, yeah, there is a stigma.
Yeah,
and
I wanted to address that.
Yeah, we definitely will address it throughout. I wanted to address that throughout the rich history, the food that Ethiopia at large have to offer to the world, and in terms of the cuisine, art, music, and so forth. But as I said, arriving to Sudan, it took us almost a month because of that hardship and so forth. And at that point, I just wanted to mention to you that it was a dictatorship. His name was Mengistu Haile Mariam. Regardless if you're Jewish, Muslim, Christian, you could not leave Ethiopia. So we had to escape. And then finally, we made it to Sudan. This is very briefly, but there is a lot of stories that went through. People got lost, some of them died, but luckily in our group, nobody really died. Everybody made it safely to Sudan. And from there, you basically had to start life integrating in Sudan, build a life, find job, and so forth. And from there, we stayed almost 3 years. The reason we stayed there, because the government in Israel at that moment were not ready to accept their black brothers and sisters to return to the Holy Land. It was a whole process, but yet they send different agents and groups, and that's how we managed to leave Sudan after almost 3 years, and from there drove on a Land Rover with my family and a few other people we drove from Sudan, Khartoum, the capital, to Kenya and Uganda. And throughout those drives, basically, you had to bribe people on the borders. We passing through different countries without a passport, without permits, and so forth. And it was all under, collaboration and different money payment and all of that stuff in order to allow this particular group leave Sudan, eventually arrive and in Israel. It's a whole operation behind the
sounds
scene.
like logistics are really intense.
Yeah, and a lot of people that lived here in the U.S. helped with the logistics and the money and creating the fake passport, what have you, and all of that stuff. It's incredible story that worthwhile even, putting as a movie or something of that nature.
Yeah, so you arrive into Israel as a young woman, 7, 8 years old.
7 years old.
7 years old. You spent the next 14 years in Israel. I know you joined the military. Take the story there and take us to that part of your life.
Okay, so arriving in Israel was quite exciting for my family and everybody else within the community. It was a dream come true. Coming to the country where you are free to practice Judaism and be who you are and celebrate the diversity, Judaism within our other brothers and sisters. Integrating to Israel, of course, wasn't as easy. It's getting adjusted to a new language, culture. We were a bit new and different to the white Israelis, so they will call us name.
Yeah, there was a lot of racism going on in that time between the new the Ethiopian Jews coming to Israel. Was there not?
There is. I would say it's out of ignorism. I would say people didn't know of the existence of, black Jews, so it was something foreign to them. But honestly, we didn't know there was white Jews neither, so it was something foreign to us. So it's vice versa. Nevertheless, it took a while for Ethiopian Jews to be accepted.
To acclimate into the community.
Right, and be part of it. Racism is all over the world. It's a global.
Yeah.
We judge people by their outside rather than knowing them or anything like it. We have to be more patient and open to accept people who they are, without judging, by the way they look or something of that nature.
So when you were in Israel, did you start getting more intimate with food? Like, when did your relationship with food start?
Well, my relationship with food had always been there. As a kid, I will be helping my mom, my grandma, my aunties, from peeling the garlic and cutting the onions. That was my job in a way.
Nice.
And growing up in Israel with the diversity of cuisine that, throughout there is a lot of diversity within the different immigration group that came to Israel, which is you have Jews from Yemen, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia,
Melting pot there.
Russia, Poland, you name it. So every one of them contributing to that, and it kind of create the different flavors, and me being exposed to those on top of the different flavors, food that Ethiopian have. So that's a beautiful way to celebrate the diversity within the Jewish world at large. That was my exposure.
Yeah, usually during this portion of the conversation, what I'm doing is I'm diving into the kitchens, the mentors, the chefs and restaurateurs had to form them into who they are today and the lessons they're taking away. What were the key lessons during your young adult life and teenage years? Anything that you think really stuck with you to help influence who you are today? People that influenced you?
Sure. The influence, for high school, I went to live in a kibbutz. Kibbutz, a cooperative way of living, where everybody eat in a big dining room and everybody have almost the same thing and is equal. Is a cooperative way of living. When I spent my 4 years there, I worked in the field, working, milking the cows. So I was exposed to the natural way of eating. I would say wholesome, even
Community,
organic,
yeah.
community
Yeah.
giving, healthy eating, and all of that stuff. So that I would say had a big impact on me. Working at a young age and I would say appreciating the land, working the land, and all of that stuff brought me, I guess, led me to where I am right now.
Beautiful. So at what point does it make sense for us to start talking about your transition to the West? Because I know you did a lot of traveling. You served the Israeli army, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to take us there?
As you know, the service for every Israeli citizen is mandatory to
That's right.
serve there.
Yep.
And I was, I wanted to serve the country. This is a country that, as I said earlier, molded me to be who I am, and I wanted to contribute in any way I could. It was a great experience, and from there, great experience. I would say interacting with soldiers, training, basic training, and stuff like that.
What about order and structure and process? Like, because military life is a great way to get that experience, that structure, that order. Some people go and they work in franchises for a little bit, right? Or McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, and they learn the systems and processes. But I feel like that same influence happens in the military with, waking up, making your bed, and following all these processes throughout the day. Did that, like, any of that stick with you to this day?
Of course, there is a order of my punctuality, how I would do things systematically. That definitely helped me to execute certain things throughout my job as well. I would say being in the army, in a platform, in a place, definitely guide you and help you to kind of shift or have a better vision throughout life in a way. Because I served in the army, I felt I could go and travel by myself in South America. I didn't really have any fear. It was a whole, excitement, endeavor that I wanted to do, and meeting other people, cultures. Of course, my first stop was the U.S. Meeting and seeing so many people, different ethnic groups, different type of cuisine, and from there down to Central America, and then going down to South America, hitchhiking, and going down doing the whole of South America, going Machu Picchu for a whole week, doing the Inca Trail.
That sounds amazing.
This is the different things that, from a young childhood, living in Ethiopia, walking almost barefoot, walking from Ethiopia to Israel, all of that stuff, anything is doable, You just have to follow your dream and keep moving.
Yes, I love that. So at this point, when you get out of the military, you're 22 years old, you're traveling throughout America. Any key points, any key influences that are worth hovering over before kind of talking about you coming to New York and what your life looked like in 2000?
Basically, just the ability to learn from other people, interact, and their experiences, their stories. Yet we might be different, but overall we're all the same. When want to have a better life, enhance our spirituality, and what have you.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that is super important for all young people to do is get out there and experience life, travel, see different cultures, get perspective, right? Because all these influences, all these different perspectives are going to mold who you become. And if you take on a huge debt, like right out of college, or if you go to college and acquire a huge debt and you don't really know why you're at college, but you just have to be there because it's what everybody's telling you to do, screw all that. Get out there, travel, find out who you are, find out what lights you up, right? And it sounds like that's exactly what you did. Like, what were any key people during your travels that really influenced you, or any cultures, people, societies that really influence who you are today?
I would say my grandma is a great influence. She always kind of pushed me to be who I am. And if I said back then in Israel that I want to go join the army, even though I'm a female, I don't have to. They say, okay, go ahead, do it. Do what is good for you. What do you feel is the right thing? And And the same thing with the South America trip. Yeah, I worked a little bit, after the army to earn my money. Went down to the southern of Israel, work a little bit in different jobs, and I said, you know what? I think I want to go and explore the world and see what I will find. Maybe from there, God knows. So you have to follow your guts, as I said first, and you don't have to follow the routine, the system in a way, because whatever works for me might not work for the other,
Yes.
but there is no formula, what have you. Just do what
Yes.
feel the best, and from there you explore. You don't know what other opportunity will come out of it.
Yes, I love that. You have to know what works well for you, and systems and processes are good, but the systems and processes that somebody else created for them in their business might not be the right systems and processes for you and all these orders. So you have to go out there, live, experience, and then pull from a little bit of this, a little bit of that experience, and build your own process, own framework that works good for you. I love that you went there. Okay, so bring it to 2000. You make the choice to move to New York City. What was it about New York City that wanted you to, out of all the places that you traveled and you experienced, why New York City?
The melting pot aspect of it, the diversity kind of attracted me. There is a magnet, something here within New York. And, as I said, when I first came, I said, in some point in my life, I have to come back. And coming here, it was a whole excitement, exploring Manhattan, going to different venues and all of that stuff, trying all the different food in the village, East Village, you name it. And when I first came here, I asked about Harlem. I said, so how is it here? Is it safe? Should I go? Some of the people, they say, I don't think so. You shouldn't.
Maybe let's put a break right there. All right, we're back, and you just moved into, or you were talking to people about exploring the idea of moving to Harlem. Take it from there.
Yeah, so, the whole stigma, stereotype of Harlem was what I heard was...
What was the stigma?
The stigma was dangerous, shooting going on, a lot of gang, all of that stuff, so it's not the safest place to be in. And from my end, I felt like, what really can happen there? Me as a being black person, and I really wanted to feel it on my own. I didn't want to hear the different feedbacks and stuff like that. And the moment I came to Lenox Avenue, 125th, saw so many vendors, colorful things going on. I said, so what to scare about? And since then, I found an apartment and around that area, stayed there since then I'm here.
Yeah.
So felt in love with the culture, history, the diversity that Harlem have to offer. And since then, I even decided to establish my business. So I love Harlem.
So when you first came to the States, the first line of work you were in was something to do with diamonds. Were you buying, purchasing, and reselling diamonds? Or what was your line of work? How did you even get into that?
It's a whole the Israeli connection, I guess. A friend of mine who used to live here, she said, they need somebody to manage an office and eventually purchase diamonds and do that and maybe design some stuff. So I went there for an interview. Of course, the first thing they were not sure. Who's this? Why she's coming? She's black. What's she doing here? And then I spoke in Hebrew. They're like, she's one of us. And I got hired and worked there for almost 3 years.
Wow.
It was a whole completely environment dealing with so much cash and bling bling and all of that stuff, which is wonderful. Learn a little bit about diamonds and designing jewelry and so forth, but that was not my calling per se. And in between doing that, I actually decided to form the nonprofit organization, the Beta Israel of North America, where I felt like everywhere I went, people ask me, so you speaking Hebrew, how come? You black, and all of that stuff. So I always have to explain myself. How am I a Jew, and how do I why I'm speaking Hebrew, and that I grew up in Israel, and all of that stuff. So me and a couple of friends, formed a nonprofit organization, and then we started outreaching to different synagogues, talking about the inclusion and diversity within the Jewish world, talking about the history, doing film festivals, cultural events, speaking engagement, to expand the knowledge. And I think since then, nobody will call you, so are you Jewish? You say you're Jewish, nobody will question that remark.
So from 2003, 4-ish to 2014, was this all you were doing? Was this your livelihood, bringing this group together?
Yeah, I had a cubicle accepted to be, we had I forgot the name, I'm blanked out, but they do for small profit organization. They provide you with office, mentorship, and stuff like that. And from there, basically the nonprofit keep growing, outreach and funding, grants, and so forth.
So your mission was to educate people about Ethiopian Jews, and also, I'm curious, were you interested in just finding more people like you to surround yourself with other people that you could relate to your challenges and what your culture? Was that part of it?
Yes, that's part of it. Just kind of to create a whole network. There were not many Ethiopian Israeli here, so we say, okay, we're forming this nonprofit organization. What else can we do in order to help one another? A newcomer will come and say, okay, somebody need to hire somebody there, so we can work there. Somebody have a vacant apartment, you can go there.
Okay.
It's kind of network, community building, stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's what we did.
It takes a tribe, it takes a tribe, a network of people to make it in today's. You got to know people, you got to help each other out. And I think this is where the conversation starts to we start to lean into like the business side of things, because I was looking at your story and you have a really unique story. A lot of successful people I talk to spend 10, 20 years in the industry networking with other restaurateurs and pulling together their professional network to when they open their restaurant, they can pull people from this restaurant, they can pull people from that restaurant. They put together their team, they put together their tribe, their network. But you didn't have that same traditional come up. You didn't work in restaurants before opening your cafe. So I started asking myself, like, what is it that made this work? Like, what is the magic juice? And I think that and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, but it's that network. You created a community of people that were passionate about the culture, about Ethiopian food, and did that have to do with anything? Do you think that influenced your success?
In a way, of course, I think so. The whole aspect of building a grassroots organization where you want to empower your community, inclusion and diversity within a community, the white Jewish community that didn't know much, and integration and so forth. Doing that and doing a lot of cultural showcases, if it's a film festival, panel discussion and so forth, that kind of created a whole knowledge and understanding of who is Ethiopian Jews, who is Beejhy in a way. And when it come up to opening a business, a restaurant, I said, I have the knowledge of outreach and all of that stuff. And the story is quite unique. Not many people know.
Yeah, dive into it.
And harmonizing Ethiopian, Israeli, Mediterranean flavors and bringing it all together with art and music and culture in Harlem is kind of one of a kind. So people are kind of intrigued and want to try. So yes, I didn't work in a restaurant before in my life. The first time I brought the idea was, but you never had, people would say, why you want to go? It's a tough business. I said, it might be, but I will give it a try. So I start cooking some stuff at home and I would invite friends to try it. And they would give me good feedbacks. And from there, we basically just keep rolling.
Let's timestamp this. When did the conversation about opening your own cafe start to emerge? Like, at what point along the timeline? Like, what year was it when you started saying, like, let's do this?
So, in parallel, doing BNAB, the Beta Israel of North America Cultural Foundation, I would say I dedicated almost 10 years doing that, going to different colleges, talking, and all of that stuff. And afterwards, I said, the cuisine aspect, and we spoke earlier about stereotypes of Ethiopian Jews being hungry, starvation, not much really to contribute to diversity of the cuisine at large. And I said, you know what, there might be something missing there. And I kind of slowly, other people start doing the different film festivals and events. And I said about, I would say 2010, 2008 or so, I said, I really want to have a place where people can come and gather and eat and dive in and talk and integrate, and learn about one another somewhere. And it so happened to be, I live in Harlem. I kind of looked in different places. 2008, there was a venue, but the financial crisis happened, and nothing really went forward. And I said, okay, it didn't meant to be, and we kind of keep moving. And then again, 2012, I spoke with some of my friends. I said, I think I want to open, and invited some friends to eat. And this young lady calling me said, I wanted to know how Ethiopian Jews celebrate Shabbat. What's so unique about Ethiopian Jews and their celebration of Shabbat? Shabbat, for example, is a sacred day for all Jews throughout the diaspora, and Ethiopian Jews in particular. So they will, back home in Ethiopia, they will stop doing any labor. The seventh day is supposed to be the day of the rest, which means starting Friday, you get ready before sunset. You prepare everything, meal, what have you, your best dinner, your best chicken, your best fish, your best bread, and all of that stuff. You prepare it, welcoming the Shabbat, the queen of the week. And then I told her, this is how we do. We prepare a special dish called Doro What. It's a chicken stew with hard-boiled egg, with a lot of spices. And she wrote an article, I believe it was for the Forward. And I said, I think there is a quite interest. And we kind of keep moving.
Yeah. And one thing that comes up all the time on the show, and I hope we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves, but is the importance of having a unique selling proposition, something that separates you from everybody else. And at the time, 2010, how many Ethiopian restaurants were there in New York City?
There were a few, but I'm not Ethiopian alone.
Yeah, see? Ethiopian, Mediterranean, Israeli.
Ethiopian,
yeah,
Israel,
right.
none. There is none yet. We're the only one.
Yeah.
So that's the unique aspect of it.
Exactly. So I'm sure we'll kind of get into that as the story unrolls or unravels. But take me to the point where this place became available. Did you have your business plan put together by this time, or did that come after the space was available? Take us through like the evolution of you putting this all together.
Okay, so we had me and my husband Padmore John, we had a business plan. I knew exactly what I want to have, what kind of food, entertainment, all of that stuff. I had the vision already, and we basically wanted the right venue for us. So as I said, we looked at a few venues in 2008, didn't work out, and about 2012 and so, looked around. 2013, somebody said, there is a venue on St. Nicholas Avenue. It used to be a speakeasy. I think that might be a good fit. And when we came in, you wouldn't believe it looked scary. It was very dark and really not kept and all of that stuff. And when I brought some of my friends to give me some feedback, they say, don't go. You shouldn't invest your money and time and effort into this.
So you obviously didn't listen to your friends.
I didn't, but I listened to my guts.
Yes.
I did. And I don't live that far from here. I said, it will be wonderful where we live nearby, to create, and I wanted something in Harlem, to create something wholesome with vegan food, healthy food, something different that nourishes your body. And, the complementary aspect is the music and stuff like that. So I said, I think this might be the place because there's nothing going on here. Majority of the places that we see is a lot of fried stuff, fried this and that. And bringing something wholesome to the community, I think is something that definitely will benefit the community on a long term. And that's what happened. I said, we will go for the place. We basically demolished everything. Those doors were two small windows here. I'm telling you a description.
There's
but
two doors, but we're sitting outside right now. There's two doors behind us.
In the patio. The place looked very narrow. the walls were going halfway. It didn't look promising, but we kind of keep breaking walls, sheetracks, and so forth. And we did it with friends and families, and it took us a while.
So you got the space in 2013. You didn't open until 2014, so it took almost a year to transform the space.
Right. Luckily, the landlord worked with us. I mean, officially, I would say it took us about 3 to 4 months since we signed the lease.
To actually opening the doors?
Because they had to finalize certain things with the previous tenant, and we really couldn't do anything until almost, I would say, September, maybe August of 2014. And then luckily the landlord gave us some time as well to rebuild and do renovation and stuff like that. And it was a whole experience. So building a restaurant from scratch, it was really...
Yeah, so like this is where I like to dive into the nitty gritty, the things you wish you knew going into that experience that you found out the hard way. Was there anything that you wish you knew? If you could go back in time and give advice to the BJ like 5 years ago, what would you have told her? What heads up would you have given her?
So, for example, with contractor, some people they will say, "Oh, I'm doing this and this." Whatever deal you're doing, have it all written down in details for clarity.
Did something happen with you?
Yeah, because they will say, "Yeah, I'm gonna do such and such," and they're ending up, "Oh, okay, if I'm doing this, you're gonna end up paying more." But whatever contract deal you're doing with somebody, have everything written in detail, what exactly they're going to do for you, so we are clear. There is nothing vague in between, nothing falling in between.
Yeah. Absolutely. What else?
Other things, I would say, overall, bureaucracy with the city here and there. It wasn't easy. It took some time.
Permits and whatnot.
Permits and all of that stuff.
What was the hardest permit for you to get?
The hardest, I would say, liquor license. It took a while. In the beginning, we sold wine and beer, and about 3 months ago, we got our full liquor license. Yeah.
So that's almost 4 years, or over 4 years.
Yeah, we did that in purpose. We really wanted to keep it as wine, international wine and beer. So after a while, people say you should have more hard liquor and so forth, and we did that. The other hard part was as I say, I never really worked in a commercial kitchen. So I kind of ordered the shelves and the freezer and the fridge and the burners, just from the space that I thought that will fit. I would recommend, if you have the opportunity, somebody with a commercial kitchen, go to their space, explore, so you can move efficiently.
Yes, ergonomics, and there's people, the professionals that can, make it so you maybe take 2 or 3 steps to get the whole job done, right? And having the low boy right beneath you, or having the oven to one step to the right or right behind you, so you're making the best use of that space.
Right.
Yeah.
So me, as I said, did it all from my point of view, and as I said, but it worked fine.
Have you made any changes over the years, or are you still with the original
For
format?
example, in the beginning, we wanted to bake a lot of fresh bread, international bread as well, on top of the Ethiopian bread. But, we bought an oven, humongous oven, and I figured out I really cannot do baking here and cooking here. So I had to send back my oven and configuring my kitchen.
Oh, man.
But it's a whole process that I learned.
You got to figure it out.
Yes, yeah. You learn it by doing it.
Yes.
You might have a clear vision, plan, all of that, but certain things in running a business or diving to any business, you improve, you get better, you get a better idea. As you do it, you have a better understanding of what you're doing.
Now, you put a lot of emphasis on your network early on, or maybe I put a lot of emphasis on your network early on. Were you leaning on that network that you established during the prior 10 years to lean on the Jewish community of people that could help you out? Was that going on?
Yeah, of course, I will ask for feedbacks, but overall bottom line thing, the decision, all of that stuff had to come from me. I will always ask feedback. Should I do this? What do you think? Or somebody knew somebody that doing something within the kitchen restaurant world. I will ask for their reference and feedback. So of course there were a lot of recommendation and so forth. Network did help.
So any other like road bumps or speed bumps or things that you didn't see coming that were surprising to you during the pre-opening stage that we can talk about before talking about what it was like when you actually opened the doors and you were in business?
Let's see. Bumps.
Maybe something will come up later. We don't have to
Yes.
put too much emphasis here. But what was it like when you actually opened your doors on day one? Like, take us to that moment when you're in business.
It was exciting. We were flooded with people, and I even recall when before we open, people will pick in and see what's coming up, and all of that stuff. It was really exciting moment. Very welcoming, and people were interested and curious. What is it with Ethiopian food, and how do you do that, and all that stuff. And we offer organic Ethiopian coffee, all of that stuff. So it was very exciting. And in between, we had different artists, friends that did a lot of outreach and marketing and open mics just to bring more attention and so forth. Yeah.
So any advice for somebody who's about to open, who's trying to generate buzz and to drive traffic to their restaurant? What were some of the things that you think were the best things that you did to promote your business in the early days?
What we did, I recall, we kind of, a month or 3 months before we opened, we created a lot of kind of graffiti artists around the cafe, and people were curious. It created a whole buzz, and different bloggers came and wrote about it. And if you are, organic, and you showcase who you are, not trying to be something else, people kind of feel it, and they really will come and support you.
It's so much easier to show up every day to a job that's an extension of who you are than it is to try to show up to a vision or a brand or something that you're trying to be, an image you're trying to project, because you got to put that face on every day. But when it's just an extension of who you are, that is just so relieving, so much less stress there, and it's so much easier. It's organic, right?
Right, and it's a lot more fulfilling, and you feel connected to the people. We have people who come in, and I spend time with all my guests. I talk to them, and if they have questions, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to say behind every great restaurant's a great person, right? And when you're an extension, if you are a great person, and that greatness extends into your business. So paint a picture of what it was like, what you were doing, how you were interacting with your guests, how you were interacting with your employees. What does that look like?
I treat them, I would say, like, not my friends in a way, but I have respect. It's not employee here.
There's no hierarchy.
In a way, but people know their place. You try to give them the freedom in a way to express who they are. For example, different people that came through here and came and left contributed a lot to the growth of Tsion Café. For example, we never really had a rice dish here. But because of one of my guys, he's from Nigeria, and he said, you know what, this rice, jollof rice, which is eaten throughout West Africa, will be nice with the chicken, sauteed chicken that we do here. And we tried it, and it was one of our successful dishes. So I'm always open to ideas and feedbacks. It doesn't have to be only Ethiopian. We are very international, so that kind of thing help as well.
So what happens when you let your people contribute and add to the experience? What's the result when that?
The result is, I would say, empowering to them, and they are happy to come here. I will hear feedbacks. You say, I can't wait to come here. I love coming here because it feels like a community, and mutual respect and engagement with the community and so forth. So overall it's fulfilling.
So are you still in the kitchen to this day? Are you still heading the kitchen? Are you still the chef, or have you transitioned out to more of an operations role, or what's your role look like today?
I will do both if whatever is necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you get during the early days? Were you kind of all consumed with the back of house? Was your husband in front of house? How did you split up the labor?
Well, we split the labor. We had different people in the kitchen, line cooks that came. We trained them, and I'll tell them how do I want this particular dish, how to cook this, and execution. So it's a matter of really teaching them the right way, and eventually I do not need to be in the back.
Recreating yourself and others, so
Yes.
you get them to the point where they can do it, and then you can transition out.
Right.
What else have you done to? Are you adding structure or systems and processes to aid your chefs, your cooks in the kitchen? And what else are you doing?
What else we're doing? We here and there we try, as I said, getting feedbacks and from each cook to get a different implementation of unique dish that will celebrate us in a way. Making sure that the train is well trained, and I always here to assist if there is any questions or in order to execute the orders and stuff like that.
Okay. What does well trained look like? Give me an example of what that looks like in your restaurant.
Well trained is if I'm not here for a whole week, they will manage and know what is missing, what to make, and all of that stuff.
So how do you get them to that point where you don't have to, or maybe you are stressed out when you leave, but maybe you don't have to stress. You can go someplace for a week. You can go promote Ethiopian and Jewish food someplace. Like, how do you get to the point where you can remove yourself from the day to day?
You get to the point when you have a good front of the house people, and they will give them feedback as well to the back. But what I do is, let's say in a week, I say, don't call me. I want you to execute all of this by yourself. And then I will come and check if everything is up to code. And this is how I do.
So you take that crutch away. You can't be there all the time for them, because if you're there for them all the time, that's going to be their default.
Right.
Call BJ. She'll have the answer. But if you say, don't call me, you're forcing them to figure it out. You're forcing them to find the answer, right?
That's correct.
I love it.
Yeah.
You also put a lot of emphasis on the gigs that you had, the performing artists that you had. Any advice on somebody who wants to do some type of entertainment to draw people off the street, to bring more people in? Like, what advice do you have for somebody who wants to do some type of entertainment?
You can do an entertainment in your venue, but do something that it will complement your philosophy. Something within. A lot of people go and do music just because everybody else is doing it.
So give me an example. Tell me what your philosophy was, and then how you complemented it.
I will, for example, this particular venue. Back in the days, and I would say the 50s, if I'm not mistaken, or 40s, it used to be a famous Jimmy's Chicken Shack, a famous club in a way where Malcolm X, you saw his image, used to work here as a waiter.
That's so cool.
And then working with Red Fox, the comedian.
Oh, wow.
And while there, Charlie Parker, the great musician, listening to Art Tatum, the great pianist.
Oh, man.
So in this venue, I didn't know, but I... celebrating, I always wanted to do art and culture and music in the venue to complement the food. So I wanted something, as you will see, our slogan is Tsion Café, nourish your body, nourish your soul. So yes, we're providing wholesome food, healthy, organic food, but we wanted to nourish the soul as well with beautiful music, artwork, poetry, book reading, and stuff like that. So it's within our philosophy that, cooking as well is an art platform on its own. So it's a very it's a cultural hub in a way, artistic way too, that we're exploring throughout the food, music, and stuff like that.
So when you were booking artists to perform, were you trying to find people that were aligned with your brand, maybe with a Western Africa influence, that type of art or music? Was that going on, or were you more just open?
We are very much open to art in the different forms. I would say majority of our music will be jazz, because this is what they used to play here. But any type of music that will complement, it's not overwhelmingly kind of interrupting the dining atmosphere, is welcome. But what we would do is as well, let's say it's a more dance style, we would do it later, towards the late hours on a Friday or Saturday night. So the people who come for dinner will have nice pleasant music, easygoing jazz with a trio and so forth. But later on, it will be more.
As the different demographics start coming out, you start servicing the different
That's correct.
demographics. What about logistics? Any advice for somebody logistically as far as managing all those people that are coming, signing these people up in advance? Like what? I mean, I've never had to do that before. What advice do you have for organizing all that and keeping it organized?
It could be overwhelming. I do a lot of stuff, but at this point, I would like to delegate. You have to delegate and give it to other people to help you. Otherwise, you will be burnt out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So, I mean, you're into this now.
We okay?
I'm just going to say that over. So you're into this now, 2014, or sorry, from 2014, 2019, almost 5 years. How have you transformed? One question, I mean, the mission statement of Restaurant Unstoppable is inspiring, empowering, and transforming the industry. So how have you transformed in this past 5 years? How are you better today?
I would say my understanding of building a restaurant, operating a restaurant, is in a different level from where I started. Any day you ask me, can you help me open a business, a restaurant, or help you how to manage, I can do it easily.
Anything we did not talk about that you think is key to your success, key to your story, anything you can bring to the table before we wrap up and go to the speed round?
I would say the overall, what is Ethiopian cuisine, the history of Ethiopian cuisine, the nutritional value of this ancient cuisine, I think this worthwhile exploring. I would say right now, overall, is very trendy eating Ethiopian cuisine, Ethiopian food, because you have the option of being vegan, gluten-free, and so forth. Is very healthy.
One thing I'm curious about with this community that you built around yourself before opening the restaurant, does the restaurant serve as like a meeting place for this community that you built, or is it more spread out than that? Is it focused within Harlem and New York?
I would say, the first couple of years, it was kind of meeting place, a gathering place. We used to do quite a lot of like Shabbat dinners. So we will completely close and have people who RSVP ahead of time to have a Shabbat dinner. With that means we will have about 40, 50 people RSVPing for Shabbat dinner, and then those people will have the whole experience, how we celebrate Shabbat within the Ethiopian culture. And different people will come and talk about their experience being a Iranian Jew, how do they celebrate. So it was really a great place where people could come and interact and learn of the different experiences within the Jewish diaspora. But we couldn't really keep doing that because our regulars start saying, hey, I mean, it's a Friday night. People want to come for dinner and we're closing it in a regular place. So we kind of have to let go. Slowly, we did different holiday celebration and stuff like that within the Jewish holidays that unique to Ethiopian Jews. So, yeah, we do.
Do you think has there been like a transition from early on? Was it mostly those people that are super enthusiastic about Jewish and Ethiopian and Israeli food that were your primary customers? But then as the word got out more, and as like being more adventurous with like how that's kind of been a trend, people going outside of their comfort food or comfort zone to eat, are you seeing there being a transition more towards just general public, whereas maybe earlier on it was a demographic that was coming to get this food? Or like what was that transition like, if there was one at all?
We had quite a lot of people that the story, the aspect of being Black, Jews, Ethiopian, they're attracted to this venue, to the food, to the story. And then the overall general public as well got interested. So what is it like Ethiopian, Israeli food? Or in overall, just to come and talk, who's the owner? Let me hear her story. Since the New York Times or the New Yorker wrote about us, the overall feedback and interest, people, keep an article from the New Yorker or the New York Times, and they come with it.
Oh, that's so cool.
And like, I meant to come 3 years ago, but here I am, I made it. It's exciting.
That is exciting
to see that.
All right, we're back, and the first question I have for you is, what is your it factor, a habit, a trait, a characteristic you believe most contributes to your success?
I would say my determination.
Determination, I love it. What is your biggest weakness?
Weakness. I mean, we all have our weaknesses. My weakness is to being perfectionist.
How are you dealing with that? How are you overcoming that weakness?
I'm trying to kind of say it's impossible to be all flawless and perfect. So you have to let go. Yeah, just let it flow.
Beautiful. I love it. I think that's something that ties a lot of people up when trying to open their restaurant. They want everything to be just right, but you just got to start and make sure that it's a little bit better today than it was yesterday. As long as you move in that direction, you'll get to where you want it to be. What is one question you ask or thing you look for when you're building your team?
I'm looking for somebody that eventually will understand my vision. Not trying to be like me, but hopefully will execute the expectation. I will tell them who we are, what we're all about, and if they get excited and they go beyond their way in order to do their job, you can tell this is somebody that understand, and eventually they will grow and be somebody on their own at that point.
I love it. What is your biggest challenge today?
My biggest challenge, I have to be more firm in terms of people who are not punctual. I kind of treat in a way, my employees kind of family, which sometimes you have to separate. Being on a professional level, yet to make them understand that this is a business. You have to be here 20 minutes before your shift, and really not punish, but have them understand that there might be consequences for that.
Yeah, if people don't think there's any consequences, they're going to be more likely to show up late because there's no consequence. But if you have that rigidity where it matters, and when people don't show up when they're expected to show up, you have to set that standard, because that's your culture. The culture is what's happening in your restaurant. So if people are showing up late, then that's the new accepted culture. That's the standard that people will adopt. You have to put those bottom lines and those rigid, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, structure.
Right.
Go ahead.
Sometimes when you build a relationship with employees that have been with you for the last 3 years, almost, 3 years and a half, it's quite a while. They almost been here from the beginning. So how do you kind of, they're great in all aspects, but how do you kind of separate the closeness that you have with them and then to come and be the firm, hey, enough is enough. I do it with my kids.
Yeah, so how are you doing? That was the next question. How are you overcoming this challenge? How are you implementing this structure?
Yeah, we do different meetings with the staff. We try once a month and get different feedbacks and really point out all the different issues that are coming up and how do we improve to do better. That kind of stuff. Beautiful.
I love it.
Yep.
Share one code of conduct or behavior you teach your team. This is a core value, a way to be, a way to act.
I would say honesty, and really you have to be, I would say, integrated to the culture of who we are in a way, the art, the music, and all of that stuff. If you feel the connection, people will give their 100%. So that's what I teach. We're all about family, providing wholesome experience to the guests, and yet creating that atmosphere that we care for you. We are not only here to sell food and that's it. We are here to sell a whole experience of Ethiopian culture and food.
So how do you implement that value of caring and honesty and just realness? That's kind of what I'm hearing from you. How do you implement that?
By me demonstrating and acting upon it through my employees.
Walk the walk.
Yeah, which, I do whatever it takes, if I can, to help in any way with my workers, so they feel the need as well to act upon it.
I love it. What is one uncommon standard of service you teach your team? So this is a way you go above and beyond what's expected from the guest.
Just make sure your whatever food, whatever service you provide, is something that you want for yourself. So you have to make sure that if you go pay $100 for a meal, whatever, make sure it looks the best. It's something that you want for yourself. So would you like to eat this if you go and pay that amount? So that the way I tell them in a way, in order to make sure that they implemented the best, like they were in that situation themselves.
One thing I've heard people say on the show, like at least twice, is pretend that your grandmother is the person you're serving, right? And use that, like, serve it like it's your grandmother's a last meal. Make it special. Like, and if you have that expectation, you have that standard for yourself, the same way you want it to be done, and your grandmother would want it to be done. Then that's a good bar to set.
That's
right there.
I always use that. Be yourself. Imagine somebody serving that to you. How would you serve it? How do you implement it?
I love it. What is one book to make us a better person or restaurant owner?
A book. What was the last book I read? I don't recall. Everything is online. I'm sorry.
Well, okay, that's all right. You can use an online resource that you use, or a website that you frequent to get inspiration or to.
I mean, the last thing, for example, I watched an Al Jazeera magazine, Al Jazeera News America, about how people, do sacrifice whatever they have if they have something or they are passionate about. They will do whatever it takes, something of that nature. So we have to walk that extra mile in order to accomplish whatever we wish for.
Got you. What is one thing you feel restaurateurs don't do well enough or often enough?
It's something I would like to improve myself, is to go around to different restaurants and businesses and see how they contact the business as a guest, to do it more often in order to learn and improve better.
I love it. What is one piece of technology you've adopted over the past 5 years that's had a huge influence on operations, communications, efficiency, profitability, anything along those lines you can share with the listeners?
I would say technology in terms of, we have a software. Should I mention the name?
Yeah, you can. It's all about recommendations. We love
we
recommendations.
recommend breadcrumbs, for example. We use breadcrumbs, and you get a report what you're spending on labor and what was the popular dish and all of that stuff. This is something that give me a breakdown. How many voids was there? Everything is there, and you can enter how many dishes of beef you have, and then when it's running low, it kind of control every aspect of your kitchen, back of the house and in front of the house. You enter the amount of the money you open with, so there is it's all clear. The employees know it, and everybody know how they work. So it's very efficient. Here and there are glitches, but I just say technology has been a great asset for us.
What's your favorite feature of breadcrumb? Like one thing that you think has had the biggest impact from that system alone?
I would say getting a report every day. How many new guests came, for example.
It's a dashboard, right? You can get it to push to your email, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Correct me so
it will tell you how many new customers came today and what is your overall payment and all of that stuff.
It's data. It basically, I mean, your business speaks to you. The numbers speak to you. And what systems like breadcrumb do is they give your business a megaphone, and they can shout the numbers at you, and you can keep your thumb on the pulse of your business and what's happening. It's very powerful stuff, that data that's available to us today.
For sure.
So this is the last question. It's a doozy. Are you ready for it?
Sure.
All right. If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom that you can leave behind for the good of humanity and for your legacy. What would those 3 pieces of wisdom be that you could leave behind? Things that you know to be true.
Be honest to yourself, compassionate, and I would say be patient to listen to people's stories and understand them.
Be honest, compassionate, and patient. I've loved this conversation today, BJ. Thank you so much. We wrap up every chat by calling somebody out. So who is one independent restaurant operator, somebody that you respect and admire and believe would make a great guest mentor like you made for us today?
Let me see. I admire, he's a big shot, Gordon Ramsay.
Okay, setting the bar high. I like it.
Yeah, in a way, he looked very rough in the way he talks to people, but I think overall he's a very passionate, nice guy. But sometimes I myself act like it in a way, kind of to put people on regiment. Yeah, somebody that I look up to in a way.
Gordon Ramsay, look out. I'm coming after you. I'd love to get you on the show. And why don't you let the folks at home know, how can we connect with you if we want to come try your food? Maybe you're hiring. Maybe some people out there are passionate about learning about Western African food and Israeli food and Mediterranean food. What's the best way to connect?
Best way to connect is like us on, follow us on Instagram, Tsion Café, or email us at tioncafe@gmail.com, or call us if you want to, 212-234-2070, at tioncafe.com. Any information, any event that coming up. But another point I just want to mention, I am currently working on a book to tell my journey, my story, a little bit with anecdote of different recipes and stories throughout the Ethiopian Jewish diaspora.
Do you have the title of the book yet?
Not quite.
Is there an email list we can get on to be made aware when that goes live?
Oh, for sure. It's tioncafe@gmail.com, but this is something I'm passionate about, bringing my story, the cooking of Ethiopian Jews and so forth to the larger platform.
Beautiful. I've loved today's conversation. Thanks again for taking the time to join us. There is no questioning, you are unstoppable.
Thank you.
Cheers.